Hello, everyone. My name is Montane, and I am the owner of You Deserve Better. Today, we are having a conversation about church experiences. The subject title is You Deserve Better Church Experiences.
Yeah.
And this is Pastor Greg. He is also my pastor. He's an awesome guy, amazing husband, amazing dad of five,
Yeah.
right? Dad of five. And yeah, today we're just going to have a good conversation.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the people that need to hear it, hear it. And yeah, let's get started. Okay, so we'll get started with something that I ask everybody. And
Yeah.
it is, what does it mean to you when I say you deserve better?
Yeah. So, hopefully this is not a weird way of answering this.
Okay.
But I see it as having the potential to be like a prophetic statement to someone.
Uh-huh.
Um, like I see it that it could have been in the heart posture as Jesus was talking to Peter after his resurrection, and he's like, "Hey, Peter, do you love me? Yes, well, feed my sheep. Do you love me? Feed my sheep."
Mm,
That Peter was a disciple who then made a big mistake of denying Jesus, and then was invited back into this like leadership role,
hmm
heart posture of Jesus, knowing I have something better for Peter. Now, the weird part of it is Peter doesn't deserve it, right?
hmm
And so that's why I said it has this potential to be a prophetic statement, but it has to be based off, and like my belief, it has to be based off of the assumption that they actually don't. But it is me crossing over what I like with mercy, crossing over what I know they don't deserve to prophetically call out like the love of God on their life.
Yeah.
Because if it was flipped to like an I statement, I feel like it would not be true anymore. Like if it's this I deserve better,
Yeah.
that might like if my statement or if my like mantra was this I deserve better, then I'm going to be missing out completely on what the
Mm,
Lord has for me, because it's more of like this like I deserve it, I deserve it, I
yeah.
deserve it,
Yeah.
when the reality is I don't deserve it.
Yeah.
I know that's a really weird way to
No,
say it. Hopefully
it's
that's okay.
not. It's not. It's very real, right? Because it's just, I mean, it's a different perspective.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's a different perspective and a different perspective that isn't worldly based.
Right, 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 right.
It's straight up based off of biblical and that biblical vision
Yeah.
of how you look at that.
Yeah, so then if you're like, I mean, which is really beautiful, like a marketing type thing. This is a prophetic way of saying you don't, but like in the light of the gospel, there is abundance.
Mm-hmm.
So you have it at display,
Mm-hmm.
like you have it. Um, Feed my sheep. Go. I mean, it's every time when Jesus flashed light on blinded Paul. Why are you persecuting me? What does Paul deserve? Death.
Mm-hmm.
But he, in the love, Jesus is crossing over what he actually deserves and gives better. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it can only work like in the mindset of Christ. You know what I mean? It can
Wow.
only work
Yeah.
when the statement, when you or you, whoever is like saying it and meaning it in love,
Yeah.
because the reality is they don't deserve better unless there's love.
Ironically, I've heard that before. I heard it in a different way,
Yeah.
but now that you're saying it, I have actually heard that before where somebody was like, but what about they brought up some of the worst things that people could
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
right? Murder, things that are very much so jailable
Yeah.
offenses. And I'm like, even in I remember thinking, and actually I believe I said it to the person, that even in the grace and mercy of God, if they wanted better. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, do they deserve to be punished based off the law? Yeah. But,
Yeah.
in the eyes of God, once Jesus died on the cross for our sins, that grace and mercy is there. It's
Yeah.
forgiven. So,
Yeah.
yes, better is still attainable
Yeah.
from a humanity perspective.
Yeah.
But yeah, that
Yeah.
is.
It has like who's the mouthpiece is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think like the woman who was caught in adultery, Like, where are your accusers?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you deserve?
Yeah.
Law says death, but he says go be free and
Mm.
sin no more. And so, like, if her mindset was like, I deserve to be treated better, I deserve, you'd be directed out of the way of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that Christ said you deserve better, like, it just, whose mouth is speaking it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if it's me speaking it, I might actually be led out of Christ. Like, if I deserve, if I think, but if I hear him constantly speak, you in my ways, in my kingdom, in my love deserve better, then that might like direct a whole lot. So that's, I know that's a whole can of worms.
It is, but it's not. It's
Yeah.
like it just places a blanket of humility over it.
Right. Right. Because you cannot wear a shirt that says I deserve better and be humble. Right?
Yeah. No.
But
Yeah.
if there's a you deserve better, then it is really commanding you to have a heart posture of that understands mercy,
Mm-hmm.
that understands.
Man. Oh, goodness. That's good. That is not what I
Sorry,
expected.
sorry.
No,
I
that
was
is
texting
like
my wife saying I don't know if she knows how I'm going to answer this, and I hope it's okay.
I don't. I don't. And that's the beauty in it is I don't want to know
Yeah,
how you're going to answer it,
yeah,
right? I want it to be organic. And I love the value and the uniqueness that you and everyone that I have spoken to with that question.
yeah,
It's all different, but it all rings true,
yeah,
right? Because everybody's perspective is different. But that's one that, like I said, I've heard it before, but not like that.
yeah,
So that just talk about a paradigm shift. Talk
yeah,
about a paradigm shift, but also like that's the gift from God. Like that's why I call this brand a gift from
yeah,
God because there are levels. There
yeah.
are levels to this, and oh my goodness, talk brain blast. Okay, I don't even know how to move on from that. I feel like I just want to let that marinate for a second, but we will move
Yeah.
on to move on to the next question. So with that definition and explanation, what does it look like for you to be better for yourself?
Yeah, I also had a weird time trying to figure out an answer to that question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this is not just because I'm a pastor. But my role first and foremost is like as a son of the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when I think of being better, um, like everything flows through, like the motivation of that is
Mm-hmm.
not to be better, to be loved better by him, or it's not to be better so that I can be seen as better, or it's not to be better, fill in the blank. Like the single pursuit of my life, and I believe any believer's life should be uh, to be better for him, like to the praise, the admonishment, the adoration, the lifting up, the glorifying of Jesus. So what does it look like to be better for myself? It doesn't really look like anything in my life because like I don't think how can I be better for Greg?
Okay.
I constantly think like how what does obedience to the Lord look like?
Yeah.
Because that pursuit really changes everything. Because for me, um, is a concept that we actually can't like, we're not, that's not our responsibility. Everything's been given for me.
Sure.
And so now my responsibility is actually for a lot more than that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's weird
Again,
again. I'm sorry.
no, it's necessary. And I believe that's why we're having this
Yeah.
conversation, right? Because it is necessary to have the paradigm shifted in a lot of ways. And so I appreciate your perspective. Absolutely. And because I know God is intentional, I know that somebody else is going to
Yeah.
appreciate this perspective. They're going to need to hear this. So great.
Yeah.
So, but you kind of already answered this next question,
Yeah.
but on a humanity perspective, right? What does
Yeah.
it mean to be better for your spouse and your children and your church?
Oh yeah. I mean, and that is a great. So, um, really, when we look at not like postmodern Christianity or even the weird like cultural Christian look where it is very either me centric or like my tribe centric, uh, being better or producing fruit or doing good deeds and glorifying the Father, all those things,
Hmm.
like my purpose and my pursuit is that it blesses others, that my fruit, I mean, we just taught about it, right? It's not to feed me,
Mm,
it's to feed others.
yeah.
It's and so that is my spouse. Yes, my ministry as a husband is probably greater and should be greater. And if you ever want a podcast on marriage, I'd love,
I
like
listen.
that's so that actually is now I cannot. This is a bold statement, but I cannot be individually seen as a Christ follower now that I'm married. Now you must take into account my union, like in order to see me individually. And so like, yeah, everything that I am now on this side of heaven is connected to a body that is female, like it's
Hmm.
my wife. I'm like the head now. And so like, but in the same way, like that showcases Jesus,
Yeah.
him and his church.
Mm,
And so that, and then obviously children, yes, my community, kingdom, yeah, our church, like everything,
yeah. The two shall become one,
yeah.
right? Yeah. Wow. No, these are things that I need to hear, right? Like, I appreciate it. So I know if I appreciate it, somebody else is going to appreciate it. If you don't, then I listen. If it touches one, that's what matters, right? That is what matters in this statement. But I
Yeah,
also know that God is blessed by this. Like He's
yeah,
still getting the glory out of it because it's so biblical, right? Loving you love your wife like Christ loves the church. The two shall become one. Like there's so many.
yeah,
Gosh, Greg. Goodness. All right, so we'll jump into the subject matter. Question is, what is something you do to cultivate a great experience or a better experience, a better church experience?
yeah,
Because church hurt is real.
yep,
And unfortunately, some people treat their churches that they are responsible for more like
hmm,
their churches and less like God's church, and
yeah,
they're just the manager, so to
yep,
speak. So, what do you do on this side of heaven with the house that you have been made responsible for?
yeah. Um, a lot of quote unquote church hurt, and that like phrasing, um, puts a it allows people to divorce Jesus from his bride.
Hmm.
When like just nailing it as it is, like it's a leadership hurt,
Hmm.
you know, it's just they were hurt by people, a
Hmm.
leader, or a community that was supposed to walk with them. And so I think the as we look at a creating a good church experience, I think really it's going to have to uh, call people to abandon their understanding of what was, who hurt them, how were they hurt, all of that, and honestly trust the bride again,
Mm,
because I think it grew up in me this. I mean, I've done premarital counseling and even marriage talk, but this is how I look at Christ and his church.
sure.
Like I can confidently say someone does not know me if they do not know Kate.
Mm,
They don't, like they can't see the full picture of who I am until they see my wife. So that's why we lead together, we
yeah.
co-pastors, because I no one can know me, and then if I apply that to Christ, no one can truly know Jesus without knowing his bride. Paul says it like the fullness of God who fills all things in all ways is his church. That's in like Ephesians.
Okay.
So like literally, how do you create a good experience like that? That truth has to be like you cannot know Jesus without knowing his body. And so then in that, like believing that the body can be everything that Jesus is. The
Okay.
fullness of healing is found in his church. The fullness of like community, the fullness of hope, and the fullness of life, joy, peace, all of that freedom is found in his church.
Sure.
And then then you can have some fun with that.
Yeah.
Like how do we live that way? How do we experience that here instead of trying to find it elsewhere?
Hmm.
How do we find like the fullness of creativity in his kingdom? If that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. It does. Hmm. I mean, I see it exemplified,
Yeah.
right? So I get to see it in action.
Yeah.
But to hear it and for other people to hear it, I don't know, it's like putting paint to a canvas.
Yeah. And it's really, I mean, so as a pastor, I then like I want people, and this is hard. I want people to want to come to church,
Hmm.
because that's the beautiful time of like seeing people on display. But at the same time, I don't want church uh, to be for them in the sense of that it is their consumeristic like um macchiato that they
Mm.
do every Sunday, because the church service is supposed to be for the lost. And so
Oh.
it's this like that's the one gathering that the lost can see people stripped down and worshiping like your mom on the ground. The
Hmm.
lost needs to see that a confident woman who stands in authority in her faith can stand down like weeping. Like the lost need to see that like
Hmm.
dynamic. They need to see the church serving. They see the worship. And so I think there's just uh it's hard to get there,
Yeah.
because the average believer struggles to see the consistency of church as like a necessity for them to be a light on the hill. You know,
Hmm. I do. Well, I've always looked at church. Church should be like a hospital.
yeah, exactly. And
Like
so
that's where
then
the sick
who's
people
there?
come.
The sick.
Hmm.
And I think it's also like it's okay to say that I'm not this a sicko right now. Like you're not sick right now,
Hmm.
but you're there because they are sick, and you're a
Right.
nurse today. Like
Yeah.
you're occupying that role
Yeah.
as a nurse. You're occupying that role as an attendant. You're occupying that role as a family member. You're there to pray. You're visiting,
Yeah.
and so like it's
Everybody has their role.
yeah.
And at some point you may be a patient,
Yep. Yep.
but you take your role and you're present. Like your
Yep.
presence is impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is heavy. It's light and it's lighthearted, but it's also hearty.
Yeah.
It's hearty because it's necessary. I feel like it's a perspective that is broken down in a way that we don't often hear,
Yeah.
right? Oftentimes it's like the monotony of going to church. At least my experience has been, not always my experience, but more oftentimes
Yeah.
than not, my experience and how I've looked at it is like, okay, when I go to church, I don't want to leave the same way that I came,
Yeah.
or worse.
Yeah.
I've gone to churches
Yeah.
and left with an attitude, and I'm
Yep.
like, I didn't come here with this
Yep.
attitude.
Yep.
So what happened?
Yeah.
like why am
Yeah.
I leaving church in road rage?
Right.
So, if you're coming
The
to the
spirit got
hospital,
deposited.
100%, and the Lord knows that that's why He moved me from those spaces.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, 100%. That's what happened. That transference of spirits is definitely real. But being in a space now where at one point I was sick, right, spiritually, and then being able to be healed, be whole, find community,
Yeah.
grow, so that I can come back and help somebody else that
Yeah.
may need to be helped. It's a good cycle
It
that more
is.
of us
And
should
we
get
need more
into.
of it.
More of us should definitely get into it. The last question is, I'm surprised we're already here,
No, yeah.
is what is a scripture that pushes you to be better daily?
Yeah. So I love the whole book of Second Corinthians,
Okay.
personally, but chapter 5 rolls in right after chapter 4. You should read all of it, but
Five
surprisingly,
right after
yeah,
4.
surprisingly, 5 comes right after 4. But on so 4 talks about, the glory of God is deposited in us. We are like jars of clay that, whatever could happen to us, it just doesn't, because it's enduring glory, but it's not us, it's Him, all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then 5 just sort of talks about the ministry that we have,
Sure.
ministry of reconciliation, and it starts off with Paul saying, like, we don't commend ourselves, but everything we do, is for the Lord. If I'm crazy, it's for Him, but if I'm in my
Mm-hmm.
right mind, it's for you. And then he says that the love of Christ compels us.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that is probably like the love of Christ compels us. And he says, because we're convinced that one died for all,
Mm-hmm.
therefore all are dead.
Mm.
And so what, like, that heavenly perspective of like this world is dead. Like,
Wow.
and so the love of Christ compels me. He died, I die. He died for all, I die for all. And then it goes on to say that most quotable scripture that's like, if you're or uh new creation, the old is gone, the new has come.
Mm-hmm.
And we always think of it like, and we do the you deserve, I deserve, I am a new creation, the
Yeah.
old, and we leave it there. But the whole like trajectory of it is Paul is saying, um, like, I am compelled by love. And then he says, we no longer like regard people from a human point of view, even though we once saw Jesus that way,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't do that any longer because everything is new.
Yeah.
And so it's not even supposed to be talking about Paul encouraging all of us to constantly say, oh, I'm new, not
Mm-hmm.
old. He's trying to encourage you to be compelled by the love of God so that you see everything as new, not old. Everything is new. And so that's a huge thing on my perspective is like, if as love compels me, then I have been given the mind of Christ to see everything new. Um, not as old,
Mm-hmm.
not the old way, but the new way. And so then with the mind of Christ, like, I can see things differently. Um, so I got to move beyond the quick little me differently.
Mm-hmm.
It's no, I see things differently.
Okay. I had all these songs come to my head all at the same time,
Yeah.
but they all related to what you were saying. I don't know why my brain works like that. Wow. Okay. Paradigm shift. That's what so that's
Yeah.
literally the biblical version of a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to have one every day.
There you
Because if
go.
you're dying to yourself every day,
Yeah.
then you see things as new
Mhm.
creations every single day.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I hope my phone is still recording because that was great. I'll cut all this out. Um, Goodness, that was amazing. Is there anything else that you like to add? You like to say?
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah. All right. Well, feel free to come by and check us out. This is my pastor, y'all. Like he teaches, and I sat here and I learned something different in everything he just said. I did,
Mm.
so I know y'all definitely learned something different. Feel free to come check us out.
Yeah.
Glory Church, 3124 Troost Avenue in Kansas City.
Sundays 10 a.m.
10 a.m. on
10
Sundays.
a.m.
10 a.m. I'm working. Listen, full transparency, I'm working on being on time. So I tell people, God willing, I'll be on time. So that way you don't catch
Oh,
me
he
in a
is
lie.
willing. He is willing.
He's willing, but if he's willing
You
to
should say
push me,
flesh willing. I'll be there on time
touche. I accept correction.
because he be willing.
It don't be me though. I promise. It don't be me every Sunday.
So someone's flesh willing.
Somebody, that's a prayer point for the house. Wow. See, listen, I'm
Flesh willing will be there.
yeah, flesh willing, get us up on time out the house in the name of Jesus. It's getting better though. We're getting
It
better.
is.
We are getting better because it was a lot.
Yeah,
You don't
you
know this.
deserve better.
You thank you.
Yep.
I do.
There you go.
You deserve to be at church on time because then you get the better, the
Yeah.
full service, the full
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
experience
yeah.
thereof. Okay. Well, thank you for tuning in. I pray that you got something, a whole lot of things, a whole new perspective as to what you deserve better means,
Mm,
because it can mean anything, right? Everybody has a different definition of what better is to them. This is probably the most thorough that I have heard. But also fresh. It's just a
mm.
fresh perspective on it. Not a bad thing, but it shows the intentionality of God. It shows why this is a gift from God and how that you can obtain better. Like it is obtainable. Like no matter where you are in life, we all go through valleys, we all go through peaks,
Hmm.
but the goal is to get better for God so that at the end of the day what we're doing is pleasing to him and he gets the glory.
Yeah.
So thank you for tuning in,
Yeah.
and until next time, we'll see you later.